Hello and welcome to the Sacral Circle, where we are healing sexual trauma collectively and lovingly. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and I'll be interviewing individuals from all walks of life who have faced sexual trauma or abuse in one form or another and triumphed over their adversity. On every episode, a guest will deliver inspirational support, words of comfort, and empowering healing advice. They'll courageously share how their experiences impacted their lives and what they did to restore their mind, body, heart, and soul. Be sure to subscribe to my podcast, The Sacral Circle. Just search Sacred Stories on iTunes. I want to thank our listeners for joining us today on The Sacral Circle, the self-love haven where we leave judgment at the door. And today I'm very grateful to have John Bustos with us. He is an entrepreneur, Reiki master, and TFT practitioner, and he's the creator of the nonprofit called In-Lightened. That's In-Lightened. Their mission is to help any individual who has suffered abuse and is looking to rise above and thrive. John, I am so happy to have you today. We've been wanting to do this for quite some time.
Yes, it's finally nice to connect with you, Jane. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, you're doing so many wonderful things here in San Antonio and are very much on your journey that you were destined to live. And I want to honor you greatly for doing that, because that in itself is already can be a difficult feat, is to be your true self. And I know that's what you're inspiring and helping other people do through all the different healing modalities and experiences and knowledge that you've acquired in your lifetime. So I want to remind people they can connect with your nonprofit via Facebook. Just search IN hyphen, I believe, right? And then it's LIGHTENED.
Right.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your nonprofit and what inspired you, because you have had a really crazy life. You grew up in a very dysfunctional family, so there was a lot that you really had to overcome and heal. So wherever you would like to start.
Sure. So I'll just start from the beginning. And by the way, I'm not here to talk religion. I am Buddhist. I am Muslim. I am a Jehovah's Witness. I am a Catholic. I'm everything, which means I'm really nothing, right? Because religion is just the title, and churches is the title. But for myself, I believe in God, in a creator. And there's a scripture in the Bible, I think it's in Deuteronomy, that says, show me a boy until he is 7, and I will show you the man. And basically what that means is that the first 7 years of our lives are the most important.
Yes.
And the first 7 years of my life, I don't remember a whole lot, to be honest with you. I remember, maybe from like 8 to 15, 16. But I grew up in a dysfunctional family. They didn't know what they didn't know. They only knew what they learned from their parents, and their parents from their parents, and their parents from their parents, hence the term generational curses, And so, growing up, I pretty much raised myself. My dad is a very, very intelligent man, speaks many languages, 7, I believe, fluently. Just one of those guys that can do anything he set his mind and his hands to do. He's really good at everything. And my mom was an entrepreneur, busy, because my dad was very selfish and, never wanted to really do a whole lot with us or take time to spend with us and, teach us things. And, so by the time I got to middle school, I was hanging out with the only people that I could get attention from. And those were people who were just like me. A lot
That's
of them,
true.
a couple of them, I remember their dads were in prison. A couple of them, their parents were married, but, very dysfunctional. So I fit right in. I felt at home.
Yeah, it's like that whole saying, misery loves company.
Oh, man.
You don't realize how you carry that energetically everywhere you go, and how that attracts, just like they say, you attract like-minded people.
Yeah, like attracts like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, got into smoking weed at, 11 or 12 years old. And it just went downhill from there. What would appear to have been downhill to everybody else, I see as a blessing today. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But nonetheless, it was tough, but it's made me who I am today. Went through middle school. I remember this one principal telling me that I needed to become a lawyer because I was so damn good at getting out of trouble. And it's because I could argue my way out of anything, but I didn't do that. I actually started, mingling a little bit with, I said, well, I'll become a paralegal first, and then I'll get into law school so I can start making some money. But man, once I got into paralegal school, I was just like, this is just not for me. I wasn't used to, I didn't have any support from anyone. It was just me. And I was very closed, not open at all. And, and it just wasn't for me. I didn't last very long. Ended up becoming a pretty popular DJ in a lot of the popular nightclubs in Houston in the late 80s and early 90s. And, just had a life filled with drugs and sex and rock and roll, like they say. And I thought that life was good, but there was always something inside of me that I knew, was better than that. And so, got married real young, got married my early 20s, 20 years old, I believe. And we had 3 beautiful kids, and we get along very well. I'm very close to my kids. But during our marriage, I realized that I would get to a point in life that, I was going to be successful, whether it was at work or, in the relationship, in business. I started business very young, and I would get to this pinnacle, to this climax, right about to climax, so to speak. And then I would do something to totally screw it up. And I didn't realize that I was, what I was doing at the time. And so, that happened for 19 years. I was married for 19 years, married for 19 years. And
That's
it's a long time. It's a very, very long time. And God bless Mandy. She, we both needed help. She came from a very dysfunctional family too, right? So, not putting the blame on anyone but everybody else for me. That's the one thing too. What we teach through In-Lightened and through some classes that I teach others is that, it's important for us to take responsibility. Well, my parents did this and that. Well, yeah, they did. But you know what? We're adults now. It's time to really take responsibility for where we are right now. But anyway, I was married for 19 years, raised my kids. I always spent time with my kids. I wasn't one of those dads that was always away. My first kid, I worked full time in a chemical plant during the day, refinery, and then I went to college at night. So I didn't get as much time with her as I had liked to. But we're very close now. Very close. I'm close with all 3 of my kids, and with the 3 from the marriage, and and then I raised 2 for 6 years almost. Tiffany's kids, Kennedy and Cameron. And so, by the way, when I was a DJ, I was also a major drug dealer. Sold a lot of cocaine and ecstasy. Did a lot of cocaine, a lot of crystal meth, and witnessed people handled by cartel type members of drug networks and whatnot. And I'm 16 years old, and I'm they're finding a 16-year-old friend of mine strangled, or a guy that dealt drugs with us, in White Oak Bayou in Houston with his neck cut. And I just said, you know what, this is a sign for me to get out of here. And anyway, so that had a lot to do with not just the programming that I had as a kid, but that had a lot to do with my life as, in my 20s up to my 40s. But in a nutshell, we started the In-Lightened. And if you notice, it's N-I-N, because healing has to come from within. It's already inherent in us. We just have to find a way to bring it out. And I believe that, like myself and like you, Jane and Justin, and the network of we'll call light workers here. There's been people that are answering their calling right now, and that calling is to do what you're doing now, to put this stuff out there, to do what I'm doing. Out of about 50 people who registered for 2 classes, one that ended back in September. I took a little bit of time off, and we started one in October. That went through the month of October or so. But out of almost 50 that said, that wanted to sign up, or that signed up, or that gave me a verbal, a yes, only 9 people came through the class and completed it. But I can tell you this, the 9 people that came through the class are all manifesting. I haven't posted the reviews on our In-Lightened page. I'll do that after this recording. But basically what I've done is I isolated myself. So let me tell you how I got here to San Antonio. So December 2nd last year, without going into too much detail for respect for Tiffany, I don't have a problem telling my side of the story, but there's always 2 sides of the story, and what I can tell you is that I'm telling you the truth. And the truth is that, Tiffany, I'd never heard of something called a night terror. I've heard of nightmares, but not night terrors. And, Tiffany had night terrors. And there was several times that she would wake up in the middle of the night, early in the morning, didn't matter. She would wake up beating the living crap out of me. I'm talking like
Yeah.
fighting for her life, just screaming
Mm.
at the top of her lungs and just wailing a wail on my face. And, she was short. So she'd get to a point sometimes where she would be kicking me in the face. And I'm talking like kicking me like if I was the one trying to choke and murder and rape her.
It was almost like she was having like a
It was real for her.
post-traumatic, yeah, like that was a reality,
Yeah,
and you happen to be the
she would be
person there.
awake. She would be asleep, but you wake up, and I've done a lot of research on this stuff. But she would
Right.
wake up thinking that it was real.
She dealt with physical, mental, emotional abuse, or was there also sexual abuse as well?
Well, I don't want to put that out there.
Okay,
Would
but
just
she
I'll
obviously went
say
through
this: if
something.
you do your research, you'll see that there's something widely known, especially in the Mormon religion. And
Okay.
anyway, so she had a lot of abuse that went on. And here's the thing: when her parents realized, walked in on things that were going on, what they did is they dropped everything, got up, and left from Salt Lake City, Utah, and never spoke a word about it for 40 years, 30 something years. December the 2nd this year, it happened again. And before that, one of the last times, there were several times in between December the 2nd and the last major episode of the night terror things, where my kids had to call 911 because they thought we were being murdered. It was so bad.
Right. Oh my
So it
goodness.
happened again December the 2nd. And I ended up calling hotel security because I could not get her under control. And I ended up leaving the scene because she had just gotten her medical license, a nurse practitioner, midwife, and I didn't want her to go to jail. I had scratches on my head, on my hands, bruised up a little bit, and I knew she would go to jail. And I told her, that I would never let anything happen to her and her license, and I'll just leave that at that. And so I left
Right.
thinking she would wake up and, but she didn't. I saw the look in her eye before I left, and it was a look of hate. And I just thought she would wake up, and I believe she has now. I know she has now, but either way, I was facing third-degree felony charges and very humiliating. I had to hire a lawyer. I didn't know what I was going to do. I got depressed. I gave everything up in Houston, wasn't responding to jobs, ended up losing the franchise. And my goal was to move to San Antonio because I knew that I knew that wasn't really her. I knew that wasn't the Tiffany that I knew. I knew what that stemmed from, and I wanted to be closer to her when she was able to wake up and heal, and I wanted her to know that I'm here for her. By the way, I've been here for her. I've had plenty of chances to date. I've had girls want to hook up, and in my heart, in my mind, I'm dedicated to Tiffany Jane.
I know. I really admire you for that. Like, you really are standing by as she gets through this dark
Yeah,
time.
and I haven't heard from her in a year now, almost. December the 2nd will be a year. But I know what I know, and I'll just leave that at that. So, I didn't know how I was going to get to San Antonio, but I knew what I needed to do. And I knew that I needed to, I attracted that situation as much as, that may seem stupid to some people. It's not. I attracted that situation. And
Yeah, because of all the unresolved trauma that you were about to like
yeah.
really
And
unpack.
although, Jane, I had been making, I started some, here's another thing. I didn't realize that I was a domestic abuser via verbal abuse. When I realized that, I was doing some research, and then I saw that, verbal abuse is a form of domestic abuse. And it crushed me because I knew that that's not who I was. So 2016, I hired the best therapist that I could find in the United States of America. Her name's Dr. Janine. It was like $5,000 a month. Right. And I did 2 months with her. And then I stuck with my therapy. And then I just did the BetterHelp app, and that worked, good for me because I was able to get a lot of things from, Jeannie that helped me. But let me just fast forward. So, things just started to fall into place as far as me having the money to move here, finding a home. My credit was shot, but everything worked out because my desire and my intentions and my motives were right. I wasn't coming here to get even with her or to, nothing like that. I mean, it wasn't like that. And when your intentions are right, God hears you, and things fell into place. So, I moved to San Antonio January the 5th, 2019. And I basically isolated myself from almost everyone for about 7 months. And I worked day in and day out on myself more than I worked on my business, having faith and belief that everything would work out. And it has. Everything has worked out great. So I just want to share what I did. I
Certainly.
isolated myself, and I remembered that a guy that I knew had given me a bunch of, self-help training stuff from, Bob Proctor, John Assaraf, Wallace Waddles, you name it. This guy had every self-help program, which, by the way, he never used any of them. And I don't know if he has to this day, but he gave me, there was a reason why he and I met, and it was for him to give me that info.
Wow.
And so what I did is I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, sometimes hours at a time.
I know. Mm-hmm.
And before you know it, things just kept falling into place. And I realized, I tell you, the turning moment for me was January the 21st this year, Tiffany's birthday, when I sent her a bouquet of flowers, like $150 worth of flowers. And the florist calls me back and says her mom rejected them. She said that you were an abuser and that you physically abused her and tormented her, which was the biggest bullshit ever. Tiffany would post things about me, I'm so, grateful because John works. He runs a franchise, works at Hot Addicts. He finds a way to pick up my clothes from the cleaners, takes care of me, the girls, the pets. What I wasn't doing was taking care of my damn self. So I did that when I moved here, and I followed a regimented program that was recommended to me through this training that, I call it, it's a recipe that has, several ingredients to keep you afloat and whatnot. And before you know it, everything started opening up, and I started becoming more spiritually enlightened, more spiritually awake and aware. And things have just worked out. I've been blessed, with a business that I didn't even realize I was going to get into, that affords me the opportunity to help others and to have the freedom to be on this call right now and not be stuck to some bullshit 9-to-5 job where there's more predictive programming going on.
Yes.
And it's allowed me to start the nonprofit with my attorney here. I'll have to tell you the story another time how I manifested her. She lives one street behind me and 6 houses down. My pilot instructor, I manifested him. He lives 2 streets behind me and a few houses down. I've never known these guys or met these guys, period. But this is what I'm saying when, God answers your prayers. I like to call God source, energy, or source, because we are energy. And, God said, let's make man in our image. Right.
Sure.
And we're made in his image. And really what I see that we are and what we are supposed to be and what we are supposed to practice ultimately is love. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying my best to pay it forward.
Absolutely. And you're doing such a phenomenal job. You really are. I just want to, again, commend you for that. One of the things that you mentioned is generational curses and trauma that we endure. And clearly there was different types of abuse that you endured and were witness to. And one of the things that comes up often that's very much swept under the rug is the sexual incest and trauma that goes on within families.
Yeah.
And how that impacted you. And are you really the only one in your family that has come to this realization?
No, I found out that I'm not, because here's the thing. We don't say anything. It's not that we don't say anything. Sometimes it hurts so much that what our bodies do, what our minds and our bodies, our minds and our hearts are connected via the gut. And that's why when you have, heartache, you really don't feel it in your heart. You feel it lower than your heart, or if you have this intuitive that something is wrong with someone, you feel it. It's a gut feeling, they call it, right? For me, the sexual stuff for me was watching my dad do things with, I'm not going to say who the person was, but knowing that my dad had done some stuff, listening to my dad early in the morning, because my parents slept in different rooms and I was a kid. Sometimes I'd sleep with my dad and sometimes I'd sleep with my mom because I wanted love from both of them. And I would hear my dad talking to his girlfriends, while my mom was in the other room and talking to them like he should be talking to my mom, and that in itself is traumatic.
Absolutely. And I think we underestimate that. We talk a lot about this whole idea of toxic masculinity and a deeper understanding in how young boys see men treat women, especially their mother.
It's how they treat themselves and how they treat everything. This is the thing. We have to learn how to treat ourselves. And that's what In-Lightened is doing. That's why I call it In-Lightened, because, right now that for many, many people, not just men, but women as well. And, the light switch is shut off and they're in the dark. And that's what was with me. My light switch was off. I was in the dark and I'm going this way and bumping into this wall, and you're learning lessons, and you turn around this way and you're still dark and you run into this wall, and then, okay, well, let me try it this way. Let me try it that way. And let me try it that way. And it's not until, you just have this self-realization, or until you meet somebody like me and you that
Mm-hmm.
can help bring these things to light. It's why it's enlightened, because everything that we need is already, it's already in us.
Yes, it's all the answers, as difficult as it is for some people to hear and understand. But really, when you start journeying down this and you go into, like what you said, that time of solitude, not to the point where you stay there forever, right, and isolate yourself from the world, but there is a level of solitude that we must go into, a stillness and a quietness, and that's when you really start to discover, wow, like these things that I'm asking, they really do come from inside. They really are stored within. It's just, are we able and willing to listen and connect, like what you said, to source, right, to creator, to the primordial I am, that's pure love, and that
Right.
really is really benevolent, and that we all just inherently have access to, just for being born. If we have a heartbeat, that means you have light coursing through you.
Oh
So
yeah.
that means, right, and that is that tether, that invisible line, and the more we rely on it and trust it and sit with it, the stronger it gets. And
Yeah.
you were so disciplined in understanding it and knowing it, that you have now embodied it. Now you can't.
I really, it's almost scary. I'm laughing. I'm not
Isn't
crying. You know,
it?
before I would cry because I was sad,
I
but now
know.
I cry because I'm excited. I'm so freaking happy for who
Yes.
I have become and the people that I have reached. And it's just scratching the scratch of the surface right now. And here's this thing. Here's the thing. The stuff that we need the most is out of this world, but it's in us, but
Isn't
it's
that
been kept a
amazing?
secret. Look, we have been so dumbed down and kept this way for a reason. And I'm not going to get into that at this
Hmm.
point in time,
Hmm.
because it's very important to know these things, but it's very important to know them and acknowledge them and use them as fuel to focus on what you do want, right? There's
Hmm.
always two ends of the stick. So my class, the Enlightened, takes a holistic approach. I've got two people coming in today, and one of them we're going to put on a CBD and a CBG regimen, and then we're going to do, we're going to clear the chakras and spend some time doing some thought-filled therapy work. But the thing is that people are looking today because they're not getting answers through conventional therapy. They're not
Hmm.
getting answers through medicine. In fact, a lot of times they're not getting anything from any of those things.
Right. Yeah, you really are helping people get into the core of the seed of where all these other things come from. We just kind of, the Western world tends to just address the symptoms, not the cause. Like what's the real true cause?
And you and I see it a whole lot. Just on social media, people are starting to post more positive quotes, or starting to
Yeah.
talk about the law of attraction, which is the senior most law of the universe. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's the senior most law of the universe. It defies the law of gravity. It's senior to everything. And guess
Right.
what? It's in the doggone Bible, plain as day,
Mm-hmm.
but it's been hidden.
Yeah, it's literally in the simplest of forms, cause and effect. It really,
Yes, thank you,
it's,
thank you,
yeah.
thank you, thank you. Yes,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
reap and sow. There's different ways. The Hindus or the Buddhists or whatever, right, they call it karma.
Right.
And then there's the physics, they call it cause and effect. The Bible says reap and sow, and that one thing alone, if you dive deeply into it, really can free you in so many ways. It's a very humbling experience, though, and that's the thing. I always, one time in meditation, it was like I got that whisper, when you get these cool
Yes,
transmissions or
yes.
downloads.
Downloads, yes.
It's, you cannot have authenticity without vulnerability and humility. I think you know what I mean by that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I
Mm.
here's the thing. You can't practice the law of attraction if you're not right within your own self first, right? But
Mhm.
once you get right within your own self and you love it, because everything is really a feeling.
Mhm. When thought and emotion come together, it's the feeling that you have in the body.
Yeah, you can't be angry. You can't wish or ask for a new vehicle to come into your life, and but be angry about the vehicle that you have now.
Right. It's such
And
an
so that's
attitude
what a
of
lot.
gratitude.
So we're so conditioned to focus on what we call the radar screen, what we see going on in our lives right now, that's all we focus on. I've got bills. I'm going through a divorce. My spouse is cheating on me. Is my spouse cheating on me?
Mm-hmm.
We've got kid problems. We've got work problems. We've got financial, what we call problems, and so we stay so focused on what we can see that we don't believe that anything else is possible. And it has been put on us like that for a reason. And I'll just leave it with that. But this, I don't post everything because I don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
But in a matter of 8 months of diligent working on myself, a systematic approach that includes exercise, walking daily if possible, that includes detoxing all my organs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't drink hardly any Cokes whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. Let me just say this and really think about it to whoever's listening, please. If you want things to change in your life, then you're going to have to change things in your life. If you want things in your life to change, then you're going to have to change things in your life. Plain and simple.
Amen. For sure. and that's why it's so important. Some things we can do on our own, but there's a lot of this stuff that we can't. And sometimes, like you said, there's books and there's videos and but really sometimes there's you need an actual person, that can really be there and be your guide and give you the inspiration and the motivation and the encouragement and be that strong source of empowerment until you build it enough from within yourself.
Right.
That's the sign of a true teacher, is not one that keeps them on a string so that they need you forever. You want to teach them what like Yoda.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Well,
so
you talked about reap and sow. You get what you give. And so I get
blessings
so much,
all the time.
man, I get satisfaction and love in my own heart of feeling when they message me and thank me. And I tell them it's not coming from me. I'm just the messenger.
Right.
Right.
You're
but
like
I
a
could
bridge,
be doing other things. I could be, not taking the time I'm fixing to redo the class and I'm going to, I'll talk to you aside of this call, why I'm redoing the class. I'm just changing up the vocabulary to give it more energy. One of the things I teach is, and that I've learned that I've passed on, is that, we've been listening to the wrong damn people. For some of us, 60 something years. I had 2 ladies that came to the class who were in their mid 60s. And so we listened to the wrong people. And one of the things we go through in the 501c, they put them through the course and whatnot, is who do you listen to? That's the number one thing. And you want to listen to people who have what you want and who have been where you are.
You're right, because if we just continue to hang around the same people that are doing what they've always done, they're always getting what they've always gotten, and you're trying to reach another level of living and evolving, and they're trying to keep you down. They're dead weight. Doesn't mean that we have to hate on them, and just have to recognize when it's time to let certain habits go, let certain people go, relationships, jobs. And that could be a very scary thing. And I think that's another reason where what we're doing is helping people build that resilience and that self-esteem and belief that they need in order to make the difficult choices that feel uncomfortable.
Yep. I just want to say one more thing. I know we're coming up on our time, but it's a quote, and you hit on it. And the quote is, in a nutshell, it comes down to this. If you want to change your life, everything has to do with your thoughts and your emotions. And we have to rebuild or build new neural pathways to change the old. Because, like what you just said a second ago, if you continue to think like you've always thought, you will continue to get what you've always got.
What you've always gotten. That is absolutely accurate. I want to thank you so much, John. You gave us beautiful pieces of gold. Please remind people how they can connect with you. And you are officially a part of the Sacral Circle Sisterhood/Brotherhood.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you. They can reach out to me either via phone. I don't have a problem taking phone calls. My number directly to me is 832-998-2108. And a text message will work better. And then we can follow it with a call. But then you can just go to Facebook and like and share our page and message me through there if you need help with anything. It's In-Lightened, In-Lightened, because everything that we need is already in us. It's Enlightened.
Hallelujah. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you, James.
And thank you to our beautiful listeners for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the Sacred Stories podcast on iTunes, where you'll find other impactful, inspiring shows. Connect with me via social media pages. Just search at The Sacral Circle. Your shares and likes are greatly appreciated because they help spread the love. As we say goodbye, always remember to know your worth and continue to love and value yourself wholeheartedly. Peace be in us.